A very warm welcome to Daily Dispatch powered by HSBC. I'm Priya Sheth, and joining me on this very interesting conversation is Awais Ahmed from Pixel. It's a very interesting company, and I've been reading about it. And there are aspects of the company that make me wonder how did 20-year-olds really build this company? So, Awais, firstly, congratulations. You closed $25 million in terms of funding. What's it going to be used for? I've been reading very interesting words like hyperspectral imaging on your website as well.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me and thanks for the kind words. Taking a step back in terms of how we got started on this journey, it started while still in college actually, but then I think there were a couple of experiences that led to it. First was being part of the student satellite team itself on campus, where we were working with ISRO to realize how a small satellite would work in space that they would then launch for free. So that was the first experience in terms of what it actually takes to build space technology. And then the second experience was leading the engineering for the Hyperloop India team. So when SpaceX organized this competition where they had a 1 mile long vacuum tube, it was an open challenge for teams to build this Hyperloop pod or a vehicle that could travel at really, really fast speeds as a new mode of transportation. So we were the only Indian team that built it. We took it all the way to LA at SpaceX headquarters. And that's where they took us on a tour of the SpaceX factory. So looking at those rocket engines being built, looking at the rockets that had landed back, that's when it crystallized in my mind that I want to work in space tech for the rest of my life. I think that was the push or the motivation. So came back from there. We looked at a variety of different ways in which we could contribute to space technology, and satellite imagery seemed a little bit more accessible. We could access some of it for free. We could leverage the resources of the university to start analyzing this. And that's when we realized that, even though existing satellites have been beaming down some basic level of data, it did not have the necessary level of quality that was required to actually see some things. For example, we still can't see nutrient content in the soil. We still can't identify gas leaks or oil leaks from pipelines. We still can't identify, where a particular forest fire is going to start from. And those are the gaps that we wanted to bridge in terms of the quality of data. And the type of imaging that would enable us to do that was called hyperspectral imaging, which has been used in the food domain to, look at spoiled foods. It has been used in the medical domain to identify cancer cells from other cells, but we wanted to just take that technology and use it at a global scale from space. So that's how the idea of it began. We just got started on the journey, and that's been the last 3 years. In terms of the recent funding, the $25 million Series A, what that does is it funds us completely for the first phase of our constellation, which is 6 satellites that will launch early next year in 2023. And we can start selling this data. We can start giving it to the customers that we have lined up in agriculture, in environment, in climate change, and different sectors. So I think that's where it's predominantly going to be used for, sending up these satellites, which will be the world's first hyperspectral constellation, but also India's first ever, private constellation.
So as I hear it, you're going to be launching 6 new satellites next year. What is the kind of launch pipeline that you have out there? And in terms of use cases, how many customers have you already onboarded?
Yeah, so I think the launch schedule sort of looks like this. We already launched 1 camera with the help of our partners last year that has been beaming down data that proves our concept. We have 1 satellite that's going up in April on a SpaceX rocket, and then we have 1 more that will go up in the next few months on an ISRO rocket. So 2 launches that are scheduled for the next few months. Then we have 6 more that will be going up in early 2023. And then we will look at 12 to 18 more by the end of 2023 as well. So I think that's how the launch pipeline first looks like. But what we are currently manufactured and working on are the 2 satellites for launch this year and 6 satellites early next year.
Tell me, Awais, in terms of the customer profile, what kind of customer profile do you have at this point in time, and what kind of companies will be interested to really, subscribe to this kind of service?
Yeah, we have about, more than 50 to 60 global customers that have lined up to procure our data once we start beaming it down. And these are from industries as varied as agriculture, oil and gas, mining, government agencies. The particular kind of companies would be, for example, in agriculture, we have fertilizer companies. They want to know whether a particular area of soil that you're looking at is lacking some nutrient so that they can use a fertilizer to increase that nutrient there. It could be lacking nitrogen. Thereby, a company could say, here is a nitrogen fertilizer for the farmer to increase the nitrogen content there. or it could be seed companies that want to see how their crops are growing across the growing season. Are they susceptible to any crop disease or pest infestation? Oil and gas companies use our data to help identify leaks early. If there's a large pipeline that is leaking gas somewhere, our satellites can help identify that leak, and then the company can go and plug that in. Or it could apply the same for an underground oil pipeline as well, which you can't see above, but what that does is it changes the soil characteristics wherever the leak is happening, and we can detect that with hyperspectral data. And a whole bunch of environment and climate related use cases. We have a few banks that are interested in measuring the carbon that is sequestered or stored in certain areas, so they can be used as carbon credits in the carbon economy. So I think those are a bunch of use cases and kinds of companies that we have been working with and will work with. One example is we announced a partnership just a few weeks ago with Rio Tinto, one of the world's largest mining companies. What we're doing is helping them reduce the footprint of their operations on what it causes, in terms of the environment.
Right, very interesting use cases out there. I also want to understand a little bit about, you have a huge pipeline of satellites that you're going to be launching in the coming months. Will these funds suffice for this kind of R&D, this kind of, investments to really build this kind of, asset out there? Will you be needing yet another round of funding?
So we had raised $8 million before this a couple of years ago that has helped fund the first 3 satellites, which are technology demonstrators, 1 which launched and 2 which will be launching. The new funding fully funds us for those 6 satellites that I mentioned. The good thing about those 6 satellites is they can help us provide global coverage, and they can help do it every 48 hours. So every 2 days, we'll be able to see an image for our customer, provide that data, and generate revenue from it. So with the 6 satellites, we will hopefully be at a point where the revenue that we are generating will help sustain our company without having to raise another round of funding. So we are fully funded at least to get the commercial phase of our operation started. Of course, having raising another round of money will help speed up certain things. We will take a call on that as the time comes. But as of now, we are fully funded for the number of satellites, initial number of satellites that we want to launch, that will help us get to a point where we are commercially sustainable.
Right. A final question before I let you go. In terms of revenue, what kind of revenue targets have you set for yourself?
Yeah, I think those are right now internal for us a number, given that for space companies in the initial few years, a lot of it is front loaded in terms of setting up the infrastructure and a lot of R&D. We started generating some revenue last year with a couple of small pilot customers that we have been working with. One is a global agricultural company, another one is a large urban project. So we're already generating revenue last year with small pilots. This year we have a lot more lined up in terms of what oil and gas companies are looking for or mining companies are looking for, as well as some more agricultural companies. So that's something that we will continue to do. But the actual global level of operations will only begin after we launch those 6 satellites next year. So major chunk of the revenue will only start flowing in from early 2023, which we have lined up. But then to realize it, we need the 6 satellites up in space. So that's where I would say we are on the revenue targets. But yeah, the point is to be able to get these satellites up there as soon as we can and start giving it out to as many customers as possibly needed.
All right, Aves, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we wish you all the very best in your journey going forward. Thanks for your time.